Hi, lawn mowing people. What I'm going to talk about today is how to minimize the startup costs for your lawn mowing business. Now, when you start a lawn mowing business, what you really want to do is you want to focus on keeping your startup costs as low as possible, because the less money you spend on your startup, the more money you've got to run your business. And if you focus on building your business rather than focus on raising money to pay all the bills that you've just incurred to set up your business. So what I'd suggest is that you start with the basic equipment and then work out the rest later on as you build it. Now, if you're going to go electric, your setup costs are going to be higher up front, but your running costs in the long run will be cheaper. So what equipment do you need to start a lawn mowing business? You don't need to spend a whole lot of money, as I said before. What I'd suggest that if you're aiming for equipment, aim for high-end domestic. Don't go buying top-of-the-range commercial, and buy what you need, not what you want. Buy what you need to get the job done. Don't buy your dream mower before you've even got a contract. You can leave that for a little bit later on down the line. Now, starting with your vehicle. The best idea, of course, is to use your own vehicle. Of course, you can't do this if you've got a saloon, but if you've got something like a station wagon, you might be able to get away with it, although that's going to be difficult. But ideally, you'd want something like a van or a ute, a light truck. Now, one thing that you can do is if you have just a domestic car, like a four-door car, if it's got a tow bar, you could always look at buying a cheap trailer. If you haven't got a tow bar, you may need to fit one, but that's a fairly cheap way to get started. You can get started for a couple of grand there by buying a new trailer. And as I said before, if you've got a van or a truck, you're pretty well set there. And remember that you're not stuck with what you buy. You can always update it later on. Now, when you're looking at a trailer, what I'd suggest is that originally you buy a trailer with a cage. These cage trailers, as I said, a couple of grand, they're not that expensive. And if you get one that tips, that's even better. You don't have to spend a huge amount of money on hydraulic tipping and things like that. You can get a cage gravity tipping trailer for, as I said, less than a couple of grand. So they're not expensive. The other kind of trailer that you could get is a trailer with room for a mower on the front. Now, that's usually on the actual, that's usually attached to the piece that attaches to your tow bar. So you do have to watch. If it takes too much real estate there, you may have problems reversing the trailer. So it is better to have a custom-made trailer for that kind of thing rather than an add-on. If it's an add-on, you're going to have problems reversing and getting in and out of some spots. Now, another thing about a trailer is it's not the best for security. These days, there seems to be a lot of guys losing equipment from trailers because you're out the back and you don't know what's happening with your trailer. I've lost bits and pieces off trailers over the years. Now, if you get a trailer made, do go with someone that's done it before. When I got a custom trailer made for a ride-on and a tipping trailer, and I spent a lot of money on it, and the guy that I had make the trailer for me actually made horse trailers, not lawn mowing trailers. And mine was the first one that he did. And I tell you, he didn't do a very good job. So just make sure that the guy that you get to make your lawn mowing trailer actually knows what he's doing. As far as mowers go, as I said, buy high-end domestic, not commercial. I had a guy contact me a little while ago, and he had a van. He was out. He was getting ready to mow lawns. He'd gone to a dealer, and he rang me and says, "I can't fit the mower across my van." I said, "What kind of van you got?" So he told me, and I said, "Well, that's a pretty big van." And then I find out that he's paying $2.5 grand for an absolutely massive commercial mower. He didn't need it. He was starting his business. He could have started with $1,000 mower. So there's no need to go spending that kind of money. Now, also, don't buy from the big box shops. The equipment that they have isn't that great. And although it may work all right in a domestic situation, you will not be able to run a commercial lawn mowing business with that kind of mower. And the other problem is that if it breaks down, then what happens is they take it to an authorised dealer, and he may take a month or so in order to get the parts and fix the mower. And that's definitely not what you want when you're trying to get a business started. Now, I'd also say try and get a mower that will catch a mulch. That's going to save you having two mowers. Also, you can mulch if it's easier, and sometimes it's better for the lawn. Make sure that you get a dual mower if you can. And also get a decent size engine. Don't get a 3.5 horsepower engine that you get on those tiny little mowers. It's not going to do the job. You want something that's a reasonable size. Don't get something super cheap, because that's just going to break down. You really want to be spending between about $800 maybe and $1,000 to buy a decent mower here in New Zealand. Don't buy cheap, you'll regret it. Also, when you talk to your local dealer, ask them what the other guys are using, because you may get some real insights here, and he may show you a mower that's great for the job and doesn't cost that much money. And the other thing is, while you're at it, ask him what his turnaround time is when he repairs mowers, because you want somebody that can repair a mower fairly quickly, because especially if it's the only mower you're running, you want to have an agreement with your local mower shop that you buy the mower off, that he'll get it back on the road for you as quickly as possible. Don't worry too much about your mower, because you could use it to build the business and you can replace it the following year. Right, what about weed eaters? For starters, get a straight shaft weed eater, not a bent shaft. Bent shaft weed eaters are absolutely terrible. They're normally the cheap weed eaters. So when you try and get underneath bushes and things like that, because you've got that little bend at the end of the shaft, it's not going to get under there properly. They're horrible machines. You do not want to try and mow lawns commercially with that kind of machine. And the other thing is, buy mid-range. Don't buy top of the line, and don't buy the bottom of the line. Buy somewhere in the middle. When you're looking at weed eaters in New Zealand, you're looking for a reasonable weed eater. About $600 to $800 will get you something. And also get a quick change head installed if you can, because that's going to make your life a lot easier down the line. Now, blowers. Again, buy mid-range. And the good thing about blowers is they last forever. I've got a blower in the shed that I bought in 2011, and it's still running. I don't use it anymore because it's such an old model that it's about twice the weight of the new ones. But there's nothing wrong with it. It runs. They go forever. About the only thing that I've ever seen go wrong with blowers is the fan go, and that's not horrifically expensive to fix. And remember that the blower that you're buying is only going to be used for cleaning up grass that's left around the edges of the work that you're doing, the paths and driveways. You don't want to be doing huge driveways and huge concrete areas with a small blower. For this, if you were going to take, let's say, a large driveway or large concrete areas like you'd find in a commercial premises, then you're going to need a bigger machine. You're going to need possibly even a backpack machine. But to start off with, just buy a cheap blower. It'll be fine. It'll last you your first year or two. No problems at all. Other tools that you'll need. For one thing, have a look around. Is there any unique tools that any of the contractors in your area use? Such as, I know one area in New Zealand where everybody has a straight edge edger, and you couldn't even start a business here without having one. That's necessary in that area. You may want big blowers because of the paths and driveways you're doing. You may be aiming for commercial work. You might want things like hedge trimmers and chainsaws, etc. That depends on what kind of business model you're looking at and what you want to do with your business. Then you're looking at things like wall bales. These are great for grass, especially if you're working with a van or a truck. Wet weather gear. I normally buy 2 lots of wet weather gear, but you can start with one. I like 2 lots, and I like to hang it up in my van because on wet days I'll change my wet weather gear after a few hours and put the other set back up to dry. And that way I'm working with relatively dry wet weather gear. Then you've got your safety gear, and then you've got all your other tools, which is basically things like pruning saws and loppers and things like that. But if you're an outdoorsy kind of person, you've probably got those sitting around in your shed at home anyway. Right. What other costs should you consider when you're setting up your business? Insurance is one thing. You want to do that from day one. You want to insure your equipment. The other thing that you really want is public liability insurance, because if something goes wrong, you may end up paying a huge bill. For instance, a long time ago, I parked at the top of a very steep driveway and I jumped out of the vehicle and went to do a job, and it was a large truck with a trailer, and the handbrake wasn't on, and it started rolling backwards. And I managed to jump into it and stop it, but if that had carried on, it could have caused thousands of dollars worth of damage. And if I didn't have public liability insurance, I wouldn't have been covered. And it's the same as if you damage your house in some way, or catch your shed on fire. There's a lot of things that can go wrong. The chances are they never will, but if they do happen, you don't want it to be the end of your business. Now, another thing that you want to put money aside for is equipment maintenance and replacement. You want to consider always putting money aside to do these things, because you do not want to run out of money and not be able to fix or replace your equipment. Your advertising costs. I normally say if you're starting a lawn mowing business, your advertising costs, if you're just going to use Google Ads, you probably get by with spending $150 a month on marketing. Another thing is licensing. Now, this is only if you're in areas that require a business license, so check with your local authorities. And the other is office and general overhead costs. And even if you're working from home, you're going to have to get things like a printer and a laptop to run your business off, and little bits and pieces like that. Right, now I'm going to talk about my favourite part, which is marketing. How do you advertise your services without spending a lot of money? Now, you've got word of mouth, ask for referrals. This is a great way. Basically, when you mow a lawn, if they're happy with the lawn, ask them if they know anybody else. Great way of building your business. You could upsell your services. So you could mow a lawn, notice a hedge needs trimming, ask them about that. Another thing that I like to do to build a business is door knocking. I've done a lot of that over the years, and it's a nice, easy way to build your business. Signs, if you have signs on their small signs on their properties saying lawn mowed by your company, and maybe even removable stickers for the letterboxes will do that job. Another thing you can do is you can talk to other contractors. If you find somebody that's absolutely full, you may be able to do a deal off him where you can take some of his leads and chuck him some money if you get any work from them. Another thing that you should do immediately is a Google Maps listing. You should set one of those up, and as I talked about before, you should run Google Ads. Now, in conclusion, keep your costs down, but don't drop your prices. You don't want to go lowballing or quoting cheap. You want your prices to be at least $1 a minute as a good ballpark figure to start off with, and you can always increase them later on. If you do these things that I suggested and get yourself some low-cost equipment, you'll get your business started and growing in no time at all. And remember, if you want to learn about how to grow a lawn mowing business, how to make more money without working any harder, you can join the Lawn Mowing 101 membership. We've got a free 7-day trial now, so you can either do a search for this or you can click the link below this video. And that's about all I've got to say. So get out there, mow lawns, have fun, and happy lawn mowing, people.